Thank you, everyone. My name is Mark Olson. I write about movies for the Los Angeles Times, and I'm also co-host of our podcast called The Envelope. We're going to be launching a new season on November 30th, so we hope you'll all give it a listen. Tonight's conversation will actually be part of a future episode. But now, if you'll join me in welcoming producer and star Mahershala Ali. And writer and director Benjamin Cleary. Mahershala, I'll start with a question for you. As startling as this sounds to say, this is actually your first lead role in a feature film, and I'm just curious what that was like. Did it change your sort of metabolism on set, the way you worked at all? What was the experience like for you in having your first lead in a feature?
Wow. That's a good question. Because it was just about doing it. I just reflecting on the gig itself. I was exhausted, but I feel like I'm always tired when I'm working. In general, because it just, it's so many hours. But what I appreciated was the marriage with Ben, going all the way back to first time I read the script, and just having the space to have these very full conversations and having the ear of the filmmaker, right? And it just being that close and what that meant with all the other points past Ben, meaning like working with the rest of the cast and specifically and Naomi, and how important that relationship was. And so, and everyone, honestly, but it was, I definitely felt it. I felt it in a different way. The only thing I could really relate it to would be True Detective, in that the aging thing and several, that it felt immersive like that. That's the best way I could put it. But you also I've always had that expectation of the work as well, for it to be sort of all consuming, and you kind of have to work to pull yourself out of it a bit, so that you can have some semblance of a normal life.
And Benjamin, you've said how this stemmed in part from your own experiences with grief, having lost a few friends. Can you talk a little bit about how that experience sort of transformed into the story of Swan Song?
Yeah, of course. I lost 3 friends when I was 19, 20, 21, 3 summers in a row. I think events like that affect you. They change you. You see the sort of ripples of grief emanate out. You feel it yourself. You see the loved ones that are affected. Ultimately, I think it changed how I navigated the world, how I saw the world. I constantly catastrophized about, what if someone else I loved could die, or what if I died? What would it do to my family, And then I think a premise like Swan Song comes into your brain years later, and you recognize it, right? And you feel like you're in a position to tell a completely imagined story, but to hopefully be able to step into the shoes of a character like that and imbue it with some kind of truth. And I think when you find a premise like that really hits you, it means that hopefully there's going to be able to be some truth in it. And then when you do finally go through all the pain of writing it, and you're as lucky as I was to get to work with someone like Mahershala, I think we all, hopefully, the script has some truth in it, and then we all start to speak about our own connections to it, and I think people pick up on that. They pick up on the fact that it's come from somewhere personal. I think that the best stories for me are ones where I can speak from a place like that, even if it's completely not autobiographical and I'm doing it in an imagined way.
Because Mahershala, those core feelings of grief and also confronting one's own mortality, how did you sort of connect to those feelings? And I mean, did it become personal for you?
I think it always is in some way. You're always trying to find like what is your point of contact, you know, with the character and the story. I'm sure we've all experienced loss. My father died when I was 20, you know, so 27 years ago, and so. But then I think what it really is, though, for me, is trying to move past my own personal stuff and really be a real advocate for the character. And I think when you really focus on being an advocate for the character, it's really less about you, or not really about you at all. But those things just being like sort of a foot in the door, and I think it's a muscle, that empathy, that I believe we all have. The great gift in being an actor is that you really have to at least work to get somewhat good at it. Your empathy has to be alive, like, and pulsating. And I think when you can get pretty sharp at connecting to someone else's experiences or journey and going, wow, I have this responsibility to every day walk on this set, understand what the given circumstances are, and really just work to tell the truth, you know, that whatever, it frees you from yourself, you know. And so I'm not thinking about my own personal experience with loss per se, but I am in the fight with this character, sort of advocating for however the world may see that person, but still really just trying to say that this is his perspective, this is his experience, this is where he's coming from, and trying to create a space for an audience to connect with that and to sort of root for that character as well, you know.
Because Benjamin, the timing of the movie is just so remarkable in that it's coming out at a time when so many people are dealing with loss and grief. Have you found the process of making the movie, how have your own feelings sort of developed or evolved? Like what is making the process of making the movie sort of done for you emotionally?
Well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think specifically thinking about the COVID of it all, you know, we were about to shoot up in Vancouver, and then it all ended, and we all came back to Los Angeles, and then we had a 6 months, I think, that we were waiting to go do it again, and eventually got back up there. And I think there was a thing that happened, which was I felt like we became galvanized as a huge, you know, we all felt really grateful to still be able to get to work, because we knew people who weren't able to do that at the time, and everyone was having all these, you know, issues. They knew people who were sick, they knew people who had passed away. There was no vaccine back then. It was definitely a trying time to make a movie. And I think when you're making a film like this, that of course is touching on loss and grief, it somehow, I think we all felt that in the fabric of what became our experience shooting this. You know, I think it somehow made its way into the film, and yeah, it's kind of hard to really put a finger on exactly what that is, but I felt it. I think we all felt it, that there was something there that was coming out of that.
Because one thing the movie does so beautifully is sort of recreate memory, and we get all these little kind of just vignettes and snippets of scenes, that flashes of things. But thinking about that practically, you were having to set up and shoot these scenes that we were only going to use like a few seconds of in the movie. Was that complicated for production? Like, what was it like to be shooting a lot of these memory scenes that we just see a little bit of?
Well, it was great. I mean, the shooting process was interesting because our present day, right, we've got two sort of visual looks in the movie. The present day for Cameron is very much so a different shooting style than the others. We used, different lenses for both of them. We were more locked off, we're more considered. It's more slow push-ins. There's a lot of central framing, symmetrical framing and things like that for his present day. And when we go into the memories, it's much more of a free flow. Masanobu, our brilliant cinematographer, was almost kind of with you guys, dancing with you guys as you did. And we did a lot of improv, which was grueling. I know, and but you, Naomi, you were just amazing, and it was phenomenal. These long takes, but what I really wanted to try and capture was just these little beautiful moments that felt like we were totally immersed in the character's subjective, and so, within the whole COVID of it all, I think because a lot of it is framed quite close and we're not going out wide because we want to stay in that subjective thing. It did suit not being in big crowd stuff. And of course we had to change things, right? We, shooting on the train, right? Those beautiful scenes that yourself and Naomi did, which are some of my favorite moments in the movie. We had to, it was like, okay, these people can be on for this long, and then we've got everyone has to run off, and it was only me allowed on with so-and-so, and we could, it was like these unusual additional restraints that happened because of COVID, but we just, I think we went with it, we roll with it, yeah.
And Mahershala, can you talk a little bit about shooting some of those memory scenes, and in particular, your scenes with Naomi, because the two of you just have such a wonderful chemistry all through the movie.
She's, yeah, and that in many ways is sort of led by her, and what I mean by that is, I remember working with her on Moonlight, and she was in the middle of a press tour. She had 3 days to shoot that whole part, and I remember first day on set, she just went all in, and she's, again, different movie, different time, but I just remember how committed she was and how mind-blowing that was to me. And in this, especially because there's a period with the flashbacks and whatnot, a lot of those, is only intending to use snippets of it. So in the script, it's oh, here's this scenario, so to speak. And so, we're improvising a lot of those, and so the commitment, though, the way in which she would just jump in immediately, that it was very freeing for me. Because, my personality is honestly a little bit like a cat, in that, fill it out, fill it out, fill it out. And then eventually you own it, right? But, I think, honestly, going back those 5 years ago, I never forgot that. I never forgot the experience of working with her. And then, so when you're opposite of somebody like that, specifically in improv scenarios, and they could be emotional, they could be funny, they could be whatever, and you have somebody who is just that committed, it really freed me up to find some other things in myself to bring to the table.
And then tell me as well about just the challenge of playing two characters in the movie. It's so remarkable because they're supposed to be the same, and yet they do have all these very fine distinctions between the two separate characters. What was it like for you to play those two parts?
It was good. It was good. It was hard in a certain way. There was a part that was very easy because of Ben, which was those characters had clearly, for me, at least in the script and on the page, they clearly had different intentions, right? They clearly wanted different things. So it truly was like playing two different characters. Forget the fact that they look alike. They clearly want two different things. And so what I learned is that so much of character and who we are stems from what we want. It was the best example for me. It made school make sense, if you know what I'm saying, right? When they're, oh, it's what you want, it's your intentions. It's yeah, okay. But when you got two characters that you're playing and they clearly want two different things, it really revealed itself for me. So I was pretty clear when we were swapping characters. I mean, we shoot this coverage and I'm playing Jack, then I'm playing Cameron, then a different angle, I'm switching back. So I might change 4 times for one scene, So that part was manageable. What was challenging, and please don't, I hope this isn't misinterpreted. Every actor, there's no working actor that doesn't first have to direct themselves before they're being directed, right? Because you have to listen to your intuition, like your instincts, your instincts, and so there's this thing where you step into an audition or you're on set or whatever, and your mind, your body, your spirit, your energy is telling you to do certain things. Then the director comes over and is like, hey, let's try it this way, or can we tone that down? Can we make that larger or smaller? Or like, let's slow down in that moment. The things that directors say. When a double is like, I had to explain to Shane, who was terrific, but I had to set myself up for what I wanted to do because I'm playing both characters. So it was challenging to kind of say in this moment, like you have to go through it beat by beat to set myself up for whatever side of the camera I was on, you know? And so that part of it was massaging that, and I don't mean because of Shane, it's more about getting my thought out, having to play the scene in my head first and go, all right, this is what I think it should feel like. Because usually you're working with another actor and they're giving you things. And then you're bouncing off of that and going, oh, we're discovering it together, right? With this, I had to play it out in my head first and then try to explain how I think I want to play it and still discover stuff in the moment. And then after that, Ben could be like, that's working, that's not working, or whatever, right? And so that was the challenging thing. It's even challenging to explain, so sorry.
There was a great moment, I think. I'm not sure how far into it was, where we started playing with using some of the audio that you would have done with, say, if Cameron started the scene, and then we'd play it for the Jack parts. Yeah. And that was amazing because we'd have the beautiful cadence and the rhythm and the kind of intention that you'd had from that first, and then play it back to you audio-wise. And Shane was amazing because he would totally support that, right?
Absolutely.
And I think that was a breakthrough too, as well, in you know what you're saying there. That was great because you'd be hearing your own voice back, and that was cool. I remember that.
There were different things that were helpful and little tricks we were sort of doing to try to just, you know, make it feel as organic and connected as possible. And again, I want to thank Shane Dean, who is not here tonight, but he just did such a wonderful job of like supporting me and really just interpreting those notes in his own way and like helping those scenes like find their life, you know, so.
And Benjamin, can you talk a bit about assembling the rest of the cast? Because the movie just has this wonderful and wonderfully diverse cast. And what was it like assembling that group?
Well, once you know, Mahershala signed on. I remember when I'd heard that you read the script and wanted to meet, and I was like, holy shit. And then I read I was so close to the script. You know, when you're so into it, and then you can't even see the thing. And then I heard that you were interested in meeting, and I read the script with your voice and you in mind, and suddenly the script was alive again, and it was amazing. And then we met like the next day, I think, and we had that great first conversation. It was phenomenal. We just, at the end of it, you were like, I want to do the movie. I was like, what's going on? This is amazing. But it was amazing. And then, of course, when you get a master like Mahershala to sign on to your movie, that's the first step, and you build around that. You know, you build. That's how it started, and then just to get like Naomi Harris, who's just phenomenal, Glenn Close, Aquafina, and everybody. You know, I think we just really, you know, casting's fun. It's a nervy time, casting, because you want to get it right. You're like, but when it works, it works great. And in this case, I think we ended up we got it. So,
because Mahershala, this is also your first feature film you're credited as a producer. Yeah. And what was it like for you taking on that additional role?
An education. It's such an education. But I think the nature, just sort of who I am. I don't necessarily like bite my tongue, you know, and so there has, from the jump, I guess, you know, with Ben, there was just this relationship with just communicating like certain things that I saw, bouncing off of what he already had there, making certain suggestions, speaking about like wanting to see certain things, like perhaps breathe a little bit more, or maybe we need a little less of that, or what have you. But just to be in like sort of constant communication about, again, dovetailing or reflecting off of what he already sort of has there was really amazing and fulfilling, and it just feels good to really have a seat at the table, and your voice and your ideas be respected and embraced, you know, and just really just going along for the whole process of like putting a film together and looking at, well, what are the large notes? What are the things that I can impact, but also I'm aware that I'm impacted by, you know, because it can go different ways with movies. You know, there's things where you don't have a seat at that table, but you're subject to and impacted by all these decisions that are being made outside of you. And the company goes on and keeps producing stuff, and you're kind of left there holding the bag sometime and impacted by that. So with that reality, it just felt so much more rewarding and fulfilling, and sort of healthier at this point to be able to have a real impact on the film, and to be able to be in conversation with directors and producers, wonderful producers on the film. So yeah, it was great.
Can I just add to that as well? Like, Mahershala, you're a phenomenal actor, and you are a phenomenal filmmaker. And all through the process, what was amazing to me, and I'll just talk about the edit process, but all the way through the collaboration that we had and how you improved this movie all the way along, and were such a great partner to me, was just fantastic. And one thing that really stuck with me in the edit was, as you started giving your notes, which were inevitably just some of the best notes I've ever received, was that there was never a point, like you could put on your director's cap and forget completely about the performance of it all. Like, I never heard you say, "Oh, hold more on me." It was always like, "No, I think we've got it there. We can, we've got all we need there." And it was about shortening things, and it was just, for me, that was a really amazing part of the process. You know, having that with you, and that trust and that liberation to know that you would put on the producer's cap, the filmmaker's cap, and sort of give brilliant notes about the cut that might be about shortening things, like not extending them as an actor, you know. That's a skill. That's rare, I think. Not that I have a huge amount of experience making a lot of movies, but for me, that was really, really amazing. And the movie's so much better for it. So I would just like to say that.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
And before we wrap up, Mahershala, this might be your first lead role in a feature film, but it's certainly not going to be your last. I know you're soon going to be playing the role of Blade, stepping into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think people are very excited about that. What does it mean to you to be taking on an iconic role like that?
Man, I really love, respect, and appreciate Wesley Snipes, you know, and he's been really supportive, you know, at least from what I've experienced from the outside. Like, I sincerely appreciate the support, you know. It's humbling and touching. And with that said, every part is iconic. You know, I don't look at them any different. I have the same responsibility, like 100% of the time. Whether I'm a lead or in one scene, if I'm doing voiceover acting, if I'm doing a commercial, like I I just am how I am with the work. I'm picky. I get on my own nerves, you know? So it's all important to me. It's all important to me. I think if anything, I think maybe I would be wrong to say that I don't feel more pressure, but I always feel pressure, you know? And I feel like something's wrong if I don't feel pressure, and it's to some degree. And so it's just kind of like, it's how I understand how to move through the world at this point. There's probably a healthier, more productive way of doing it, and maybe I will discover that. Pray for me. But like in general, you know, again, Marvel and all that, it's incredible, but all these parts are I shouldn't say they're important. They're important to me, and I do the best I can.
And that's a wonderful place for us to wrap this up. Please, everyone join me in thanking Benjamin Cleary and Mahershala Ali.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.